What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Live from Redhook here at the Function House. I'm Mike Gentile, along here with Anthony Vitale. And tonight we'd like to welcome our special guest, Sammy Needlz. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Sammy.
Thanks for having me.
What's going on?
What's up, everybody at home?
So what's up, man?
Welcome to Redhook.
Yeah, I like Redhook.
Come here often?
For the lobster.
Oh, lobster pound.
So you
Yeah,
go
yeah.
Lobster pound?
Yeah, I do.
How about the crab, what is it, the crab shack?
Jack.
Yeah, occasionally. I don't get down here enough, though.
You gotta check out Hometown. Hometown's pretty good also.
Cool.
You like barbecue?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, but you gotta pick the right time to go there because there's always like a line around the corner to get in.
Yeah. Are you guys from this area? You're from Brooklyn, right?
Yeah, well, I was born and raised down here.
Yeah, he's from
Dope.
there.
Yep.
I'm from Brooklyn on the other side though, Marine Park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about the way it's changed, like, in the last 10 years or so?
I don't mind it. I mean, there's
Yeah.
a lot of old school people from the neighborhood that they really don't like the change,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's cool. Yeah, I'm gonna-
Dope.
Where are you from?
I grew up in Massachusetts.
Boston.
Really?
Yeah. Well, not Boston, but Western Mass by Springfield. Yeah. So I grew up out there. My mother's from Manhattan. My father was born in Philly and raised in Jersey. And yeah, they were hippies, met in Cape Cod, lived on a commune in Vermont, and then ended up in Western Mass after they had my sister.
So any musical background your parents have?
Yeah, a lot actually. So my father he's 67. He's still in a rock band that tours and puts out music. He still writes.
Sick.
Yeah, he still writes,
What's he
arranges,
play?
and plays. He plays rhythm guitar, lead sometimes too.
So that's where you get your skills from.
Well, that's where I get my music from, for sure. So when I was growing up, pretty much every holiday from like 7 or 8 years old until even now, he was giving me music. So Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, the Delphonics, Steely Dan, Curtis Mayfield, Sam Cooke, Sam and Dave. I was like 8, 9, 10 years old with all of this music, all of this classic music, and that's kind of my foray into DJing is because I already had the catalog,
So he was a big vinyl collector, your dad.
Yeah, they had a lot of vinyl for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when did you start getting the buzz for DJing?
So when did I actually start DJing? I got my first pair of turntables in probably 1996, like a pair of Gemini belt drive tables. But before that, I had like a shitty $70 Radio Shack mixer, and I was making like pause tapes and tapes off of, like Public Enemy tapes and Tribe Called Quest and shit like that. But I think I really got into it like in the mid 90s when battle culture really started to get big. When it was a thing where it wasn't just like you were playing music. It was this like real fringe culture that was like athletic in a sense. And I grew up as an athlete, so I kind of saw the same thing of like you go to practice every day, you have routines, you have certain things that you work on, and like the Rock Raiders, the Mixmaster Mikes, the Crazes, like all these guys that were just doing like crazy body tricks and scratching through the legs and over the shoulders and shit. Like I really gravitated towards that because to me that was like my father played guitar and that was my version of guitar at the time. Right. Learning how to scratch and do, scratch in different pitches and different, styles, etc.
So how many hours did you used to spend
Dude,
practicing scratching?
Yeah, I mean, because it was fun when you're like 15 years old and you don't have to work a job or whatever and you get out of school at 2:30 in the afternoon. If you're not hanging out with your friends being a knucklehead, like you have something like that, that's what you do. You spend 3, 4, 5, 6 hours, spend 20 minutes on homework so you can get by and then just, scratch, learn the records, read liner notes, all that.
And then when you like finally get a certain scratch, then you're like, oh my God.
Well, the crazy shit for me is that, I grew up where I grew up and there weren't really any other DJs. I was the only DJ in the town that I grew up in. So I learned how to scratch listening to DJ Clue tapes, Funkmaster Flex tapes, listening to Flex on Hot when I would drive from Mass to Jersey to visit my cousins. Like that whole stretch from Connecticut down to Jersey where we could get Hot 97, my father probably hated my guts because he didn't want to hear any of that, But I'd have it dialed in because I needed to hear what was going on. And like I didn't have access to the music like you did in New York,
Were you watching DMC tapes and stuff?
Yeah, so I get like bootleg like VHS tapes or buy them. Yeah.
So were there like any specific DJs that you like saw and you said to yourself like, wow, I gotta start doing this, or like in your like you said there was no DJ, you were the only DJ in your area, but were you gravitating, like did you see a DJ at a certain event or something like that?
No, so it was mixtapes, dude. It was mixtape culture. So it was mixtape culture, and Revolution is actually from the area that I grew up in. So I knew obviously because he was on the Wake Up Show with Sway and Tech, and I mean, he's just nice. So between listening to mixtapes of like, you know, like I was saying, Clue and Flex, and just even other guys like OG Ron C, or, you know, guys like that, and then hearing, you know, radio when I was coming down to Jersey or New York or whatever, that was really the inspiration.
And I mean, Hot 97 and Flex at the time, I mean, that was like, he was the shit.
Yeah.
I mean, he was the guy. He was the only game in town in terms of like, you know, the big hip hop DJ at the time on the radio.
Yo, and it wasn't just that though. Now we're in an era where culture is so accessible. If I'm like the hottest rapper in New York and I put out a record right now, it's on the internet in 5 minutes. Anywhere in the world can get that.
Yep.
At that time, there was, you know, 20 white labels of a certain record, a Jay-Z freestyle, whatever it was. Flex had 2 or 4 or however many he needed to like do his thing. Not many other people had that record. You only heard that on Hot 97, or you heard that in the club that one of the like 5 or 10 DJs who had that record could play that record.
Yep.
So it was just a whole different time, you know?
And then maybe somebody got their hands on it and bootlegged it.
Yep. Killer Cuts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I remember,
Killer Cuts.
Used to get those in
everything.
Springfield, Mass. That's like right in the area where I grew up. Used to get them all the time.
So you grew up in vinyl, you know, like, so how was it getting vinyl out there?
Tough. So it was Springfield, Boston, or New York. And typically I'd take the trek down to New York as often as I could, which usually wasn't enough. But
What record stores did you succumb to here?
Rock and Soul was
Rock and
like
Soul,
the number one.
Yeah.
90% of the time I'd hit Rock and Soul.
You ever been to Beach Street?
Yeah, I went to Beach Street back in the day too.
Yeah. I was big in Beach Street.
Rock and Soul was my jam though, because they had like the white labels with the 80s, with either 80s or classics, like records I couldn't find elsewhere, and like edits that people would make on white label too. So I'd hit them all the time for that.
Yeah, Rock and Soul had a lot of good finds. You know, like there was like rare and eclectic records that you could find in Rock and Soul in their bins. I know the first time that I discovered Rock and Soul, like I was a big Palladium head, so I used to go to Palladium in the city. And I found a lot of records that Charlie Casanova used to play on Saturday nights that I couldn't find anywhere. Just digging in those bins.
There was a lot of like good record stores in New York. I remember like Discorama was good. Vinyl Mania, Fat Beats.
Yeah.
There was a ton of.
What was the one on 14th Street? Was it 14th Street or 23rd Street? I forget what it was.
West 8th Street?
No, it was more of like a. It was more of a house music.
I don't remember.
It'll come to me. That was a big one too.
So what was like one of the first clubs you worked in Boston?
In Boston, first clubs I did in Boston was Venue. They used to do a Thursday night party, and that was 2002. But I actually started in New York clubs before I started in Boston clubs.
Okay, so wait. So you were born and raised in Boston. When did you finally move to
Well, I was
New York?
born and raised in Mass, in Western Mass, so not Boston.
And then you came to New York when? Like what year did you come to New York?
So I actually moved to New York in 2005, 2005 is when I moved.
So you started DJing in New York.
Prior to that, I was DJing in New York. I used to drive from Mass. So I used to come down and do Lot 61, Guest House, Home, Coral Room, Chetty Red, which was like a small spot, but that was like 2002.
Yeah.
Right around that time.
It was a great time.
Yeah.
That was like one of the best times.
It was that whole area too, like 28th Street over there at all those clubs.
So who actually put you on?
So I actually knew this guy, Josh Shames from Massachusetts, who was going to UMass Amherst. And he used to do parties at the Tunnel with like Noah Teppenberg and like guys like that.
Yep.
So through those guys, I used to DJ parties in Western Mass when they were at UMass, and they're like, "Yo, we want to bring you down to New York," and then they slowly just started bringing me down on the weekends. I'd drive from Mass, do the party, and come back, which is actually crazy thinking back because that was still in the vinyl era, and I would bring 6 crates of records in my car, leave at 6 o'clock at night or whatever it was, get in there 9:30 or 10, go to the club, haul the crates of records into the fucking booth. DJ till 4, get out 4:35, and then drive back, get back at 10 in the morning, and just like go to sleep.
Wow.
But at that time, it's like there weren't a million DJs, There was like a handful of people that were DJs because it was cost prohibitive, and like you really wanted to do it if that's what you were gonna do.
Well, you needed money to buy records. I mean, it was like we've had obviously a lot of guys on the show, and we always talk about this. Like being a DJ, you had to be committed. You know what I'm saying? It was just, there was no shortcuts back in the day when there was vinyl.
Yeah.
You know,
You
so
had to go shopping every week. You had to make sure you had those records. Every week.
yeah, and the people who were really dedicated were putting in the time calling the labels. You know, getting on the promo lists.
It's funny because I just went back to my parents' house in Mass last week, and part of that trip is going through all my old records because I have probably 6,000 to 10,000 sitting there, and 60% of it is label promos. It's like Universal Records, like Shauna Records and shit like that, where I have like 5 copies of that I don't need it.
Yeah, because they had. I mean, they used to send a lot of bullshit. Along with every once in a while you get some good stuff, and then there were a ton of record pools, but it was always very hard to get into the good ones.
It's crazy though, because that's so indicative of the time too, because labels had money at that point. Because in that stretch there was like the Mix Show Power Summit, where the labels would pay for all the DJs to fly to like the Bahamas, and it'd be like you and Flex and Felly Fell from LA sitting with Jay-Z smoking a cigar and like having a drink, and then being like, yo, thank you for playing me the record this year. And that's it. It's just you guys, Now that's disappeared.
Yeah.
That money is no more.
Yeah, no.
Well, they were pressing everything, too. There
Yep.
were so many records being pressed out.
Yeah.
And it was nuts. I mean, like, I interned at Sony Music for like 6 months. I worked for Epic Records.
Okay.
And it's crazy. And I was young. I had to be like 18, 19 years old. But it's crazy, like, to see behind the scenes what they used to do back then to get records charted, to get records to #1, where they would actually hire these independent guys. Like, the labels would hire these independent guys to actually go out and promote a record. At the time when I was working at Epic, Gloria Estefan, it was around the time of the Olympics, and Gloria Estefan had put out a song called Reach.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, that song was okay. I think Dave Morales did the remix. But they hired people to promote the shit out of that record to get it to #1. And they did. Not that it was the greatest record in the world, but that's what they used to do.
Yeah.
So tell us about what's going on now. You got your radio show that you do.
Yeah. So I'm on Sirius on 2 stations. I'm on Shade 45.
Yep.
M&M station every Thursday night with Static Selecta, my man Destroy. Terminology is on it as well. But me and Static started that show 10 years ago. Show Off Radio. I started actually on the same slot with Clinton Sparks. I used to produce that show when Shade 45 started in probably like 2004 or whatever that date was. So anyway, every Thursday I'm on Shade 45. Saturday nights, pretty much every other month, I do the reggae station, which is the Joint 42. So I do Dance Hall Saturday night, which is dance hall, soca, Afro pop, stuff like that.
How do you keep up with all the different genres of music?
Yeah, that's got to be tough.
Like going from dance hall to your regular show.
I mean, it's crazy you saying that, because I have that, and then I'm DJing clubs 3 nights a week, and the clubs that I'm doing are different almost every time.
Yeah,
so then it's like big room clubs, and I'm playing Showtech records and Diplo and shit like that.
So basically you wake up in the morning and open your computer and you're just going through music every day.
Pretty much. I mean, it's just having like a single-minded mindset. So this is on the plate today. I'm only looking at this. This is all I'm doing right now, and not getting distracted, Because if I'm like digging through Chance the Rapper and Action Bronson and Joey Badass records for Shade 45, when I need to be planning for my soca dancehall show, you have to be good with your time is basically
Right.
what it is.
But I mean, I guess it's also good that you have that versatility. Because that versatility, I would think makes you more creative.
Yeah.
When you're playing your sets. If you're ever playing a particular genre for a night, are there ever times where you may cross over in a different direction just because you can?
Yeah. I mean, that's like how I came up as a DJ. Because in the era, yeah, if the era that we're from, you would break records in a club.
Right.
Radio was breaking records, and in the club we were breaking records. That doesn't happen so much anymore now. People just want to hear what they know. But that's what I come from. So if I know I can squeeze in like a Movado, a Vibes Cartel, a I-Octane record in the middle of a set with Major Lazer and Rihanna, I'm gonna put that in there because it's a dope record, and maybe they won't know it, but it helps me pace the night too.
Yes. Yes.
If I'm sitting on a 3-hour set, like sometimes I want to throw shit in there that I like too.
Are you making edits? Do you make your own edits?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
You say you DJ 3 nights a week. What clubs are you working at right now?
All over. So I do Providence in Atlantic City. I do Shrine up in Foxwoods. I do the new spot Adrian Grenier just opened, the Vinyl here in New York. I do the spot Freehold in Brooklyn, which is really dope. All over. It depends on the weekend.
Are you still traveling internationally? Because I know that internationally
Yeah.
you did some spots. How'd you get into the international scene?
How did I get into that? Honestly, I got into that because all of my friends were DJing overseas, and I was sick and tired of not DJing overseas. So I got to a point where I was just sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I was just like, actually, this is what it is. So I had friends who had residencies in Tokyo, had residencies in like Berlin and spots like that. And I was always waiting for those opportunities to open up for me. They never happened. I kept knocking on the door, no one would answer, like it just wasn't fucking happening. And finally I just said, fuck it. I booked a round trip ticket to Japan like years ago. In, out, Japan, Hong Kong, and that's it. And then just reached out to everyone that I knew and said, I'm going here during this time. If you can help me with DJ gigs, awesome. If not, all good. Honestly, like a week after I booked that ticket and said that, everything just filled out. Everything fucking filled out. So then I went from me only DJing in the States and being on radio and like never having that look to now I had like a full Japan and Hong Kong run booked. And then after that, it was just easy. Then it was people saw me with,
Right.
DJing all over the States, going over there, going over here, and then it was just easy to get booked wherever.
Well, that was actually a very smart move.
Yeah.
Because I guess half the battle back then was like, maybe they didn't want to pay to fly you out there or whatever the
Right.
case may be. But now you were creating your own opportunity by flying out there.
Well, the other side of it too is it wasn't like I was on vacation. It was a straight business mindset.
Yep.
It's when I hit the ground, I'm hitting the ground running. So anyone I can meet, I can shake their hands, I can be friends, I can look out for them, I can give them an opportunity. Anyone that I need to know, that's what I'm doing. If it costs money, that's fine.
So where was it that you worked out in Tokyo?
So I did Feria, I did Pure in Osaka, I did Social Club Tokyo.
Who booked you at Feria?
Sal Morale. You know Sal?
It's crazy.
Yeah.
What year were you out there?
That was 2013.
He's still out there.
He's still out there.
Sam
He hasn't
Wood.
come back.
He's never coming home.
No,
He loves it out
for
there.
sure.
That's awesome. You got to experience Feria.
Yeah, Feria is a fun time, for sure. You guys know Truth, too?
Yeah.
He was a big DJ at Farrier.
Yeah?
Let's talk
Yeah.
after this.
Okay. Truth said he was stopping by tonight.
Yeah.
He's watching at home. Hello.
So,
And then after that, not to cut you off.
no, that's fine.
So after that, it was, then I went to Thailand and Cambodia. This last July, I was in London, Croatia, Berlin, Hamburg. Did a whole Europe run out there. Going back to Europe in November for a couple weeks, and then back to Asia in February. For
So now it's just like normal routine for you to fly it overseas and do like a little tour.
Yeah, go in, go out, have fun, get your money, come back.
Do you love it out there or what?
I do.
Do you find it more rewarding in terms of music that you can play and responses you get from the crowds as compared to like maybe playing the New York circuit?
So it's a mixed bag. Leaving New York makes you appreciate New York so much in so many ways. Not even just as a DJ, but you get stressed out by being in New York so long because it's expensive. There's too many people. Everything's difficult. You go somewhere slow and you're like, oh, this is nice. But after a day, you're like, I want to go to a fucking bodega and get a sandwich at 5 in the morning. Why can't I do that?
Yeah.
And then you're like, I miss New York. It's kind of the same overseas because I'll go just about anywhere and they treat you so well because you're obviously getting booked to fly there and play there, so they kind of they're making you the artist you're supposed to be. But so they give you that respect and they're happy that you're there, but they don't know the records that you think they should know. So there's certain records that go off here in New York or even the East Coast or in the States that are huge and don't work. Like don't work in Asia. It could be my biggest record right now and I'm playing it and it's wood. No one cares. So it's weird, You're wondering, well, am I gonna get booked again because these records that I thought were huge didn't go over so well? They still like me, do they not,
So what do you find yourself doing in those situations where, I guess it becomes frustrating, right?
Just play Be Faithful. Bro.
yeah.
In that situation, just drop
That's
Be
it. I mean, that's the instant bring people to the dance floor record,
It's
right?
funny because like records out in Tokyo where they're so behind, like the Crazy in Love is like one of the biggest records out there for like the past 10 years.
Yeah.
So it's like it takes a while, and some records just never get there.
Yeah, they never cross over at all.
Yeah.
But now, I mean, like in Asia, they have Hot 97 playing through satellite, like 24/7. They'll have Hot 97 playing in Chicago.
Guys like Lead, like
Yeah.
DJ Lead.
So
Shout out to
like,
Lead.
Yeah, they're like bringing it. You know, there's a lot of records are not making it over there.
So which style, since you have so much versatility,
Mm-hmm.
you play so many different genres of music, which one do you gravitate towards more that you like really enjoy playing?
I mean, that's difficult because I think what I'd like to play, if I could play anything for an extended period of time, I wanted to say for the rest of my life, but that gives me anxiety to think of playing any one genre for the rest of my life, would be like disco, house, funk, soul, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like Afro house, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't get to play that many parties. It's like once a month I'm in a space where I can do that, you know?
Where's that? Is it in the local or?
Yeah, mostly like Brooklyn spots. There's a couple parties in
Well,
Brooklyn.
Brooklyn has a lot of those spots now
Yeah.
that are appreciating that music. We talk about it all the time on the show. I mean, it's got a good underground scene where you have people who are actually gravitating towards that music.
Yeah. I mean, guys like Eli Escobar and MoMA and, you know, the Tiki Discos, like those parties, shout to those guys. Like they've really, I know guys like Ellie and MoMA, I think they're in the same position that I was, at least where I am now, where they were kind of doing mainstream things and doing a little bit of everything. And then they stuck to their guns of what they really liked and what they were really into and started their own parties and did them and then owned that. And they're killing it. They're absolutely killing it doing what they do, you know?
Well, you have a lot of guys doing that now. I mean, look at the Mr. Sunday and...
Oh, Mr. Sunday is probably my favorite party in New York.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, you know, look what they did, you know?
It's amazing. The crowd there is amazing because it's literally people, almost the entire age range is there, anywhere from 21 to 50 or 60.
They go there to dance.
My favorite thing about that party is that there's a sign when you go down to the dance area. It said if you pull your phone out, security will take you off of the dance floor. You can't have your phone out. on the
Yeah, I
fucking
read
dance
that
floor.
on their website.
It's amazing.
which
I
is
read that on
awesome
their
concept.
website, yeah.
And most of the time, people are playing vinyl too. So
Yeah.
they're like curating their sets on vinyl and playing,
It's
and like letting records rock for 7 or 8 minutes,
I
and
don't
people
know-
are just
and I don't
vibing.
know any of the records. Like I'm just like
Yeah,
I don't know any of them. They're great.
Well, I mean, I think that's the bigger problem today. I understand, what DJs have to do to motivate crowds and how people go in and out of records, and I think it's cool
Yeah.
in certain instances to go in and out of records and do stuff fast. But I think what's happened is that the attention span of the crowds have gotten very short now
yeah,
because you're not playing the record for longer than a certain amount of time. So like people, and so when you go to a club that's just conditioned for like cut in and cut outs, you have a DJ who's playing a record for maybe a more extended period of time. The crowd can't handle that.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like these parties create that.
It's
now.
funny you say that because I see that divide. My sister is 8 years older than I am, and this is part of the backstory too. I was 10, she was 18. She bought me my first hip hop tape ever, which was Apocalypse 91, The Enemy Strikes Black. I wanted NWA because my cousins in Jersey were listening to NWA. She wouldn't buy it for me. But, so anyways, she ran her college radio station, was sending me all these record promos, etc. And she's from that era of DJing. And she lived in San Francisco for 17 years, and I'd visit her every year, and we'd go see DJs out there. And that's like some of the illest turntables in the world are in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And we'd go to certain parties where it's like the new style of DJing, where it's kind of like, I don't want to say eclectic, but it's all over the place. It's incredibly quick. It's just hits after hits after hits. And she's like, what is this? This doesn't make any sense. And me being a DJ, I kind of see both sides of it. I see, the curator side of it that puts together a set that really makes sense and flows and has a beginning and a middle and an end. And then some of the newer style, which is just throwing hits together as fast as possible because no one's paying attention.
Right.
And it's not good or bad, it just is. It works in some places need a different format.
No, I agree. I mean, like the thing back in the day was like, all right, the main objective was to keep the people in the club.
Right.
Right. You had to keep them in there.
Yeah.
And you had to keep that rotation, right? So you had people at the bar, people on the dance floor, people at the bar, people on the dance floor, and so like the objective wasn't always to have the energy like
At 11.
yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like it's because like you're gonna exhaust
It's a lost
the crowd,
art, right?
Yeah.
It's
you
like
know?
that's a lost art, and being an opener is a lost art.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, we actually spoke about this a couple
There's
times.
a way to set up a room.
Yeah.
It's very important to open the room the right way.
Yeah.
And it's just not happening anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I was out, you know, the other night, and there was a young DJ playing, and he was pretty good. I mean, he was playing some good music, but he was just like the energy, like it was just nonstop.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like, I was just getting exhausted because I'm like, wow, like I can't keep up with that. You know, like you know.
So what do you guys think? You think it's gonna come back to where it's curated, and then it's, or is it over? There's like a divide, and then there's this and there's this.
I think personally, there's a scene. It's a small scene right now
Uh-huh.
where it exists, and it's in Brooklyn. It's in these small places in Brooklyn. Do I think it would ever be in Manhattan again? I think it's just too expensive to own
Yeah.
nightclubs in Manhattan for them to go back to like the way it used to be.
Right.
Because it has a lot to do with bottle clients and
Yeah.
they got to pay bills and stuff.
Yeah.
But in like these smaller venues in Brooklyn where the rent is not too much money, you're finding these dope parties. Like I went to a party the other night. Riz was DJing at the Rub. It's called the Rub. It's in the Bell House.
It's one of my favorite parties.
One of the dopest rooms I've seen in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
So like I see this and like I see like a little movement happening.
Thing is, the Rub has been rocking for a while. It's like over 10 years they've been doing
Yeah.
the party. That, I mean, that's up there with like the Do-Over. I played the Do-Over. I played the Rub. I played this party, Old Dirty Sundays in Tampa. And it's like, it's very similar. Obviously, you know, the Rub being in New York is not an anomaly, but, you know, it's got a special place.
Yep.
You're right, though. It's funny because I read this article the other day about the club scene moving and how it moved from like, or at least the artists, it kind of moved with the artist scene, which is like the East Village, Lower East Side, Williamsburg, Bushwick. And now all these parties are pushing further and further east. So what's next? It's going to be like Brownsville. Or where, I mean, Industry City is where Mr.
Industry
Sundays
City.
was for a while.
Yeah. And they're doing like
It's a really dope area
They're
too.
doing bigger festival type parties there. Like they're, you know, huge warehouses where they're throwing, you know.
Yeah.
What was the one that they just did there? I couldn't-
Height.
Height, yeah. They did that.
They just
couple
did the
months
grain
ago.
terminal down here in Red Hook
Cool.
with Cascade.
know.
So
So they have
Wow.
the venues that can hold, you know, 7,000 people out there. So they can do those big parties out there.
And there aren't like residents close to it? So
No,
it's as
it's
loud as they want?
all industry. So it's all warehouses. So there's no residential,
Wow.
you know, within like a 2-mile radius, I would say,
Yep, it's
or
all
3-mile
warehouse.
radius. So nobody's going to be complaining about loud music or crowds or anything. I mean, the only thing is transportation. Like the subway's not like right there. You got to walk.
Right.
But yeah, that's the that's a
so
new
what do you
spot.
got prepared for us? Did you prepare something?
Kind of. I'm going to wing it a little bit. So, like I was saying before, I'm on Shade, I'm on The Joint. I do a lot of open format clubs. It's my bread and butter. That's where I make money. But I really wanted to play records that I'm into, things I don't get to hear that often, records that I grew up on, or even like edits of records that I heard now that I really like and I don't get to play out. So I'm going to jump into funk, soul, disco, 90s hip hop, sample records, even some edits of like disco house records, that kind of stuff.
Dope. Well, we're looking forward to it.
Cool.
Appreciate you coming down here to the
Thanks for
Function
having
House
me.
and
Yeah,
rocking
man.
with us.
This was great.
All right, we're going to take a 2-minute break. We're going to get Sammy Needlz up on the turntables.